What's up, everybody? Stacking Surfer here. We have got an awesome video. Well, I guess I should say show tonight because we're doing a live stream, not a video. But I'm coming to you guys live from Fort Knox. Oh, my finger just disappeared. Okay, maybe I'm not live, but we're going to be talking about Fort Knox today, so this is going to be good. For those of you that have not been reading the news, do not have social media, have no idea what gold and silver is, we're going to help you guys learn about all that today. But there's some big, massive news that's just dropped recently that I think is important for you guys to understand and for us to chat about. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Fort Knox. We're going to talk about the New York Fed, the LBMA, what's happening in the COMEX. We're even going to talk a little bit about gold revaluation. We're going to talk about, I don't know why my finger doesn't work, guys. Behind me here, Fort Knox, we're going to talk about what happens if there is no gold. What happens if there's way more gold than we think? And what would happen if there's kind of the right amount that we think of, right? And is all of our gold stored in the United States for the government, for the Treasury in Fort Knox? So we're going to cover a lot of this stuff that I think is going to be pretty fun. We're also going to go on a tour of YouTube and look at all of the news that's buzzing on this right now. And I think that's very important because if you guys are like me, I feel very much like no one's been paying attention to gold and silver. I'm coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this channel, and I have not forgotten, guys. I've been sick in January, and then February I've had crazy amount of work to do, but we are going to be having a party coming up here in March. I'm going to try to do it on the actual anniversary of my first video being launched, which is going to be March 24th. Just need to make sure we can get that all set up, but we're going to be doing a 10,000 subscriber party as well as a 2-year anniversary. We'll have some giveaways. Hopefully we'll have some other people from the community that have contributed to the channel over time join me. And then also we're going to have some of those really cool silver coin holders that I picked up and had custom made in Las Vegas. We're going to have those for giveaways as well. They're pretty darn cool. So it's going to be fun. To get started with this real quick, though, I do want you guys to do some homework on this after we talk. There's a lot of information that's going on about Fort Knox behind me, as well as all the news around Doge, or I should say, I guess it is Doge. I don't know. Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk. And he's basically going through organizations, ripping them apart, finding a bunch of inefficiencies. And even more than that, he's finding a massive amount of fraud that's going on with the government. So I think we're just starting to see kind of a revelation of all the things that have been going on for a long time that many of us believed were probably happening. We might have been called conspiracy theorists for it, but there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on. There's also the reason we're going to go on a little tour, and then we're also going to be talking about some of the facts that are coming up here too, is there's a lot of not correct information going on out there about how much gold is valued on the books of the Treasury, where it's stored, what happens if the gold is not in Fort Knox, what happens if Elon Musk takes a camera crew in there and it turns out that they're all chocolate bars covered in gold foil. What's going to happen to that? So we're gonna dive into that today, guys. All right, so I want to welcome the chat real quick here. We've got Nickel Stacking. I don't know what you did to your profile name there, but it's turned into a much longer one. We've got Richard Roche, welcome. And we've got OC Stacker in the house, Will Laudner, sorry. And we've got Redneck Coins, Sugar Sand Prospecting, welcome. And Azure Blues in the house too. He says I took all the Fort Knox gold, and now you can call me Azure Knox Blue. All right, well, at least someone's got it. So that's pretty good. And we've got Echo Leaf in here too. Welcome. And we've got Flag City Parts. Michael Stacking as well. So hi, guys. So if we've got enough people that are YouTube stackers that I've seen your channel in the past and kind of know what I'd be getting myself into if I bring you guys up on the channel here, we might try to do a panel a little bit a little bit later, so probably closer to the half an hour mark. If you guys are still awake and want to do that, it'd be fun to bring a couple other people up to get their opinions of this as well. So we're going to start off with a tour real quick. I want to show you guys that. All right, so let's make this work. Okay, so you guys should be seeing this now. Probably should put my phone on another screen so that we can see that too, so I can see what you guys are seeing. Bear with me for a second here. All right, that way I can see what you guys are seeing too. So if you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button if you guys haven't done that yet, so you don't miss anything. All right, so let's come up on this. So we've got a bunch of channels here, guys. A lot of these channels are talking about this right now. It's kind of interesting when you get into the crypto realm. A lot of these guys that do channels or gals, they believe. Oh, you guys can see my vidIQ stuff over here about people's channels, so you get a little sneak peek over here. A lot of them believe that if there's no gold, it's going to make the price of gold go down really, really far, and everybody's going to lose faith in gold. We're going to talk about that. I do not think that's the case. I think it's exactly the opposite. But here we go. 500 billion audit. I have not watched that video. We're just going to kind of look at a few of these though. It's going to be a lot more than that if they not in cost for auditing, but if they go to revalue the gold, it's going to be much higher than that. U.S. gold reserves, is Fort Knox gold really gone? Okay, so there's a couple questions there. 140K gold. So you can see, yeah, you can see what I was searching up here. Fort Knox gold revaluation 2025. They're all related, and it's been really the subject of a lot of attention just the last couple days. I just wish I could get out there and do a few more videos for you guys. I've just been completely slammed with work and life in general, but we are going to get there. At least I'm feeling better. So 140K gold, is that possible? It's possible. It is, guys. Fort Knox audit, is it going to happen? So we've got videos there from Silver Dragons. We've got some shorts here. The US is about to revalue gold, what it means for you. Okay, we do not have that confirmed, by the way. You're going to see a lot of clickbait in here, by the way, as well. And then you've got It's Gone. That's the South Park little video that's pretty funny that a lot of people use for pretty much anything that has to do with fiat or investments disappearing on you. Fort Knox and Trump's secret gold move. Okay, so these guys are trying to do that too. All right, let's see what else we've got in here. So 1,000% increase in gold prices. I think you could see it a lot higher than that potentially if things really unwind. We have had gold do better than that over about a 10-year period of time. That happened really quickly. That would actually cause a lot of chaos. But Trump's been talking about a golden age, right? He's been talking about that. If we do revalue gold, it would be a little bit more than 800 billion, depending on the number you look at. We've got Money Sense here. I think this is one of the aggregators that puts out videos. I could be wrong though. It looks like it might be, with Andy on there. The Mar-a-Lago Accords, these are being talked about big time. And then you've got urgent warning to silver stackers coming up, okay? So we're going to talk about that. And there's also some other videos that I'm surprised did not come on here. This was a pretty good video that I was seeing coming out from Redacted today, if you guys have watched any of their stuff. And then we're gonna dive into this and talk about it. So where is their video? Pretty sure it just barely came out. Wonder if they did a live here. Oh, that is interesting. We'll have to find that link a little bit later. But they had one that came out that was pretty good. And then Mike Maloney's channel had a pretty good video here today too. So what I liked about Mike's video today is he actually went in, and you can see that it's he's scoring a lot. This is actually getting a lot of views, 3,400 views per hour. Anyway, he's got to work on his channel over here though. But when you look at what's in his video today, he actually has most of the facts down pretty right. I haven't found any that are wrong, I should say. But that's pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna stop sharing the screen here. And I want to hit the comments from you guys real quick before I dive into a couple other facts for you guys. All right, so a couple things I wanted to share. I think Azure Blue had one in here real quick. So 261.6 million troy ounces, or almost 8,200 metric tons of gold. Those reserves are valued at a set rate of $42.22 an ounce, or around where the metal's price sat in the early 1970s. So that is correct. However, I was watching Mike Maloney's video, and he said it's actually goes to 2 more decimal points. So it goes to 42.2222. Thought that was interesting. So he wanted to get it all the way exact. But 42 is a great answer, guys. If anybody's asking you, 42.22 is good too. But that's what it's valued at right now. So what that means is the Treasury is showing an asset of whatever number of gold bars we have. They're coming out at $42.22 per ounce. Okay. So why is that important? Well, it's way undervalued compared to today's price. So let's see if I can pull it up for you guys real quick. I'm just going to do it off my phone. It's faster. So we're at 2941.80. Oh, come on. Let's see if we can get it to show up. Yeah, it is backwards, but you can see it there. So it's a lot higher than that. So the first question I want to pose to you guys, and I want to see if you guys can answer this for me here. Number one question is, what happens if the United States Treasury revalues gold to whatever I just showed you guys? $2,941.80. Okay, what if they went and revalued it to that, or let's say $3,000, or give it take a couple $100? I want to see in your comments down below, what do you guys think would happen? Would we see the spot price of gold go up? Would it stay the same? Would it potentially go down? What do you think would happen? So that's my first question. I'm going to check on you guys in just a second here. All right. Also, if you have a question for me, go ahead and put your comment in bold. That way I can see it a little bit easier. So yeah, so Azure is letting us know here it's in Kentucky, south of Louisville, and north of Elizabethtown. All right. Okay, let's see what else we've got in here. So we're going to start hitting a couple of your guys' comments. Gold will fly. So this is from Redneck Coins. Gold will fly if there's no gold or less than that's supposed to be there. It'll be instant hyperinflation. You want to talk about wars? Oh man. So my thought on that is I do believe that if there is less gold in Fort Knox, okay, and it's not just Fort Knox where the gold's stored, it's also stored in the New York Fed. And then this is one of the reasons I really liked Mike Maloney's video today. I just didn't have time to pull everything out to create a video. That's why we're doing a live. I thought it would be better than not getting something out. But you also have the repositories for the U.S. Treasury, where they're actually using that gold to mint. So you got all the planchets, right, that are being used to make your gold buffaloes and eagles in the different sizes that the eagles come in, as well as other medallions and medals and things like that. So you've got all that gold. And then he also mentioned a couple other places. So I won't tell you guys that until you go and find it, because I didn't have time to write it down. But there's a few other places where the gold is stored as well. So it's not all going to be in Fort Knox. Even if we do go and audit it there, it's most likely going to be distributed in other places. And maybe why we're seeing a lot of gold coming back to the United States might actually be because it's gold that the U.S. Treasury owns. They know that there's about an audit about to be done here, and they want to make sure that they repatriate all the gold that they've lent out. So that is also very possible too. Now, instant inflation, hyperinflation, it might happen. It really depends on um, how people look at it. So, the case can be made that we do have a gold backing to our paper dollars, okay, to the fiat dollars, because we're supposed to have over 8,000 tons, right? 8,200 tons of gold. So you could say that's kind of a backing. The reality, though, is it isn't a backing. There's no, our fiat currency is not backed by gold. It's not even pegged to gold. That's why we keep seeing the prices of gold go skyrocketing. If it was pegged to gold, the price of gold would not change in US dollars. It would stay the same um, until they break that peg by printing more dollars than they originally had when they put the peg on. The other issue when you're backing the currency with gold is it needs to be redeemable. Okay, so there's a lot of conversations I've heard about we are going to go back to a gold backing, and when we do that, it won't be redeemable for the average person, but it might be redeemable for institutions, or let's say people that are redeeming kilos of gold at a time, or maybe something even bigger than that, like a 100-ounce bar. Okay, maybe. But you got to have all that gold, and you've got to have enough faith in the system to keep the gold in the country to back the currency, or you run into problems. That's why Nixon shut the gold window. Um, so, would we have instant hyperinflation? Well, we could. If everybody believed that the United States and its value is based on gold alone, it will cause hyperinflation big time. And we won't survive that story very, very well financially. However, on the other end, if we end up having some crypto reserves, okay, if those get put in place before this audit's done, that could be something that might hold up the value. We do have value that comes in all the land. We have value in all the companies that are here in the United States. Um, so you've got that. You also have other minerals and assets that are in the ground, so other commodities. And we have a lot of gold that's supposedly in Alaska and in the Grand Canyon. So you could potentially, put those up as not necessarily collateral, but they could be there to kind of shore things up. We could start mining it. As far as wars go, I think the biggest risk we have to war in this scenario here is really around um, if we go to revalue the gold. It's not about whether it's there or not, but if we go to revalue the gold to some crazy astronomical number, um, I wish I had a chalkboard to show you guys here right now. So it's right around $42,000 to $50,000 an ounce of gold to burn off all the debt. I don't have the exact math, so I'm going to ballpark this. And I've heard anywhere from about 100 to 200,000 to per ounce of gold to basically burn off all of the debt, all the IOUs that the country has. So let's just talk hypothetical $200,000. If we value gold up to 200 grand, one of the things that's going to happen right off the bat is people with gold's going to be worth a lot more. But the country, if it wants to pay off that debt, is then going to go print $200 trillion of debt. And it's around that number, guys. And not in debt, sorry, in new Federal Reserve notes. So they would have the Fed do that, and you would basically hand out basically worthless paper money to everybody that's holding the debt. They could theoretically do that. You're going to have a lot of very upset people that are holding the debt. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to have hyperinflation. And so, yes, you might be holding gold, and you might have even more purchasing power, maybe even double, triple, quadruple, maybe it's even 8x that than you had before. But you're going to be paying a lot more for everything else. So it's definitely not something I would hope for. So it looks like Yankees number came up at 142K. I think that's one that Tim was bringing up, is that number too. And everybody's going to have a different number. And the reason for that, guys, is they're all counting different amounts of debt. And they're also counting a little bit of a different calculation around how many ounces, or let's say tons of gold that we have. Okay. All right, let me see if I get to your guys' questions here real quick. Okay, so here's another question. We'll hit this real quick while we're at it. What happens if the United States uses a stable coin that's basically running on the XRP network, and they then back that token, that coin, with gold? Well, It might work. It might work. It might be something that we end up having happen. Um, there's been a lot of conversations around having a CBDC, and there was a lot of pushback around that. And a lot of that comes to this community of really pushing back, and a lot of creators putting content out about CBDC, as well as Andy Schectman. I've had him on many times, and we've talked about that. Um, I do think there's a high probability that we could see a scenario play out like this. Um, this is something that I don't think would probably be instituted until we're desperate and we need to. And so I would most likely see a banking failures, banking collapse run on the banks, maybe even a massive cyber attack where data is lost or people's money's lost in the banks before they would probably institute this. But I could be wrong. They could bring it out earlier. It would not be a CBDC, to be clear. It's not from the central bank. It would be something that's most likely held by the Treasury. The gold would be held by the Treasury. So it'd be a little different. However, it is still a cryptocurrency. It still has the ability to be programmable. And so in the wrong hands, you could still have a lot of the side effects and the issues that you could potentially get with the CBDC. But it is an interesting concept and idea. Now, the one thing I will throw out to you guys with just in crypto in general is when we get to the point where we do have something like this, which I think at some point it's going to be inevitable, it's your off ramp for crypto. Okay, at some point you're not going to be able to sell your crypto into gold and silver because the people with gold and silver may not want that, and you'd be going into either a stable coin or a CBDC. So that's one of the big reasons that I think people that are heavy into crypto really should consider having some gold and silver on the side so you can have some money out of the system. I think that's really important. All right, you guys put a lot of comments in here. I got to get down to where we're at currently, so you guys aren't too far off. All right, let's see what I can do here real quick. But I do want to hit some of the interesting comments you guys have put. Okay, let's see here. How many seals were broken? Yeah, I don't know. It definitely messed things up in the economy. That's for sure, guys. Um, if you don't believe the U.S. is solvent, you're not going to buy its debt. And if we don't buy the debt, the government doesn't function right now. Elon Musk isn't able to shave enough spending off of everything yet to make that big of a difference yet. So we're still going to have a lot of issues if that happens. This is a misconception that I see a lot of people talk about. At least I believe it's a misconception. And the reason for that is it's more of a math equation. It's possible to take the gold that we have in the world and still have that work to back currencies. Um, you just wouldn't back the small denominations. You'd be backing the larger denominations. You'd be using silver for the lower denominations, and then you could be using things like copper and other metals for the smallest change, for example. But it all depends on what you value the gold at. Is really what it comes down to. If you basically put a gold note at $100,000 in US today, you could back that. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing, but there is enough gold if you calculate it a certain way. If you look at gold being valued at $42 an ounce, yeah, there's definitely not enough gold to go around to keep, to basically keep the system humming. But if you go with a higher amount and you use lesser metals, you could do it. All right, let's see here. What backs cryptocurrency? There really isn't anything that backs cryptocurrency. It's basically backed by the next person that's willing to buy and pay for that for the next higher price. What really you're looking at with cryptocurrency is you're looking at a couple categories of things. You're looking at Bitcoin that really acts more like a store of value. However, I would argue that it's hard for anything digital to be a good or a super safe store of value. There's a lot of risks to that. And any of you guys that have dabbled in cryptocurrency know that a lot of people have lost some of their cryptocurrency. It can be kind of tricky. So it's definitely a trickier one than just having some gold and silver in a home vault or home safe. What you really see with cryptocurrencies is it's technology, it's software. I'm in the software industry. Cryptocurrency is just technology. They figured out how to basically gamify it, and they figured out how to create it in a way that it can be monetized as the currency, or not currency, but as the software itself. So, where I see cryptocurrencies having some of that backing is it really comes down to a lot of their utility for most of the cryptocurrencies. If they have utility, that they kind of have some backing to it, because that utility has a price to it. Okay. So it is a function of doing business. It'd be kind of like saying what's backing the price of your electricity. So it kind of fits into that area. When you look into the meme coins, they're really just things that people are creating, and they're trying to see who can get rich off the next one. And that's a dangerous area. I would not recommend anybody play around in. And then when you get into Bitcoin, it really comes down to how much people are willing to hold on to it. If the market floods and there's not enough buyers, the price goes down and it can go back up. And that's why it's very volatile. So there is stuff that backs it, but I don't think it's a great backing. For me and my family, I'm not going to sell all of my precious metals and go into just Bitcoin. I think that can be very dangerous, especially if we end up with EMPs or electrical issues. There's a lot of things, hacking, a lot of issues that can potentially come in. Now, is that to say you shouldn't own any of this stuff at all, in that it's horribly bad? I wouldn't say that either. I do own some cryptos, but I try to invest in basically projects that I believe have good utility to them and can do stuff. However, if you don't know what you're doing with cryptos, don't even get anywhere near them. And for me, it's really a way for me to buy a little bit more gold and silver. All right. So it's something I'm taking a little bit of a risk on. And then there's some projects that I do believe have some good utility that could be helpful. I'm in the AI space, and some of these tokens are set up in a way that can benefit the work that I'm doing. However, it's the price. Okay. It's not the technology, it's the price. Most likely you're probably overpaying for it because there's a lot of hype around it. So be very careful with that. So just, know what you guys are getting into before you get into stuff. We got Yankee stop by for a second. He said, dude, go knock on the door behind you. I tried. I can't. My hand disappears. So it won't work. Okay, let's see here. So that's interesting. We got the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, as well as the Gettysburg Address was stored in Fort Knox. So that's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to try to get caught up here because some of you guys may not be here still. So if we get up to $200,000 or $140,000 gold, we're going to have the stores are going to be broken into. Well, it's not really going to buy that much stuff for you guys. You're not going to be able to just necessarily walk in and buy all those things. However, I will say that most of those stores will close down. They won't know what in the world to charge you for your gold and silver, and they might be really, concerned about that. Yeah, CBDC is a name, guys. It just means that it's basically a digital currency, or a stable coin that's being issued by the central bank. What if it's issued by the Treasury? It's no longer a CBDC. Okay, maybe kind of read between the lines there a little bit. We're probably going to get something that looks a lot like that in the near future here. All right. So, as we're looking at these things, guys, it kind of all relates to it. Some countries like the BRICS nation have kind of talked about a commodity basket. So, maybe 40% gold backing, maybe some Bitcoin in there, maybe some other stuff in there. That could happen. Just know that we're kind of entering into let's just call it a financial reset globally, to where things are going to start to change very quickly. And we don't exactly know how it's going to play out yet. There's going to be a couple different countries that are dealing with that. So Andy's number was 142K. I should know that because I've had him on many times, and we were talking about that. There's another number I've heard people go up to about 215. I've had other people talk about it being around 100. So it's going to kind of vary with a few different factors. Not everybody publishes what their factors are to get into that. I think Andy did walk through that, and Yankee was pulling that information off of it was a conference that Andy was at recently, which is pretty good. So let's see. Okay, I got to catch up with you guys here. All right, Azure Blue says the Ark of the Covenant is Fort Knox. All right, then we are good, guys. I don't know. I saw a reel the other day. It said it's over in Ethiopia, so I don't know where that thing is. Um, I do believe it is real though. Okay, so let's see. All right. So Kenshi, our favorite troll that likes to come in here and have fun with us and tell us to buy Bitcoin and have Lamborghinis. He says no government has a silver Knox. There are some governments, especially like when you get into India, where they do like to have a reserve of silver, but most countries don't reserve silver from a monetary perspective. At least they don't disclose that. They might hold silver from a strategic um, industrial metal standpoint. All right, let's see what we got here. So yeah, silver will go up. I'd have to get out my calculator and really work the math, guys, to see where it goes. But let's say gold hits $142,000 an ounce, and you want to go buy some gold, and you realize it's $142,000 an ounce. You don't have that in your bank account, and silver is still sitting at $33, $35. I guarantee you the price of silver is going up. People are going to go buy a bunch of that because they believe it'll go up, and eventually it's going to inflate because of the gold price anyway. So you would see the price go up quite a bit. And if you see the ratios flip, then it would really skyrocket. Okay. So what backs the US dollar? Nuclear weapons and aircraft carriers. That's basically what backs the US dollar today. All right. So this is true. I talked about this on X the other day. Um, it is true, but we also have the ability to do it. So no other country can revalue the US dollar. Only the United States can revalue the US dollar, or let's say the Federal Reserve could change that, right? The Treasury could come out with a new note, and they could revalue things too. Other countries can revalue their own fiat currencies. They can't touch ours. So here's the issue. If we go and revalue the US dollar, let's say gold in US dollar, and we do gold backing or a peg, we are going to create a situation where we're going to ship out our inflation to everybody that's a bond holder. Okay, so a lot of these countries that have it, and I think it was with Andy last time I had him on, I think he said about $10 trillion is held by foreign countries, which means a lot of the debt's still held by US citizens as well as the Federal Reserve, which I don't know how you can own your own debt. That seems like a total Ponzi scheme to me. But you are going to run into situations like this where it's going to be a domino effect, where if we go to do that, it's going to cause a lot of other issues that happen, right? So, excuse me, you've got US revaluing gold would be the world effect, with everyone paying off their debts. So we would have hyperinflation to some degree. It depends on what they revalue it to, and it also depends on how everybody reacts to it. These things could be quick. They could also take a little bit of time. People are still holding fiat dollars and they're not worth anything. It's just paper. So it can go for a long time where people don't really realize how much they're not holding. But paying off debt is definitely something that'll happen. A lot of people will try to go do that. And if we ever get in that situation, that's one thing I would recommend to you guys is pay off the debt. I also would not wait for this to happen to pay your debt off. If you can pay some of your debt off, I would go and do that. Personally, I don't like to have any personal debt. I hate when I have debt. I also like to have a paid off house when I can do that, because to me, then you've got the security of having a place to stay. Now, financially, it's not always the best thing to do, especially if you got an interest rate under 3%. But go look at how much you pay for that interest rate. You're still going to be doubling the amount of money your house is worth. You're going to be paying for it twice. With the 30-year mortgage, those are also not great to have. You want to be paying those off faster. But yeah, paying off debt can be a really good thing. It can also slow down your ability to grow faster, but it can create stability. If you're really wanting to leverage things, you might consider renting instead of owning. And depending on where you live, that actually might be a better deal sometimes, and all of that. For my family, we've always tried to own as much as we can, because we like to stay in the same place and have stability and not have a landlord that could potentially lose their house and evict us. So we try not to do that. All right, let's see what else we got here for you guys. Let's see. You don't need a fort to house Bitcoin. I knew he would come up with something smart. One problem you do have though with Bitcoin is how do you secure it and how do you make sure someone doesn't take off with the authentication? So you got to definitely do multiple forms of authentication on that, so you don't have just one, two, or three people holding all the strategic reserve. I'm curious to see how many wallets they end up with. So that's going to be a very interesting thing, and probably slow down the ability to move it around too. But yes, you don't necessarily need to have a whole house to do that. But you know what, guys? The weight, the ability for gold to not move around very easily is a feature. It is not a defect. It is a great feature. It makes it hard for people to take it. It makes it hard for people to steal it. It also gives you a little bit more time to kind of think through what you're doing when you're moving your gold around. All right, so let's see what we got here. Okay, we're back on the CBD stuff. We're kind of finished with that. All right. Yeah, West Point was another one. Okay, so West Point is another one that stores gold, so 22% here. So the other thing to kind of talk about with this, guys, is if we have a gold audited Fort Knox, it's not going to be sufficient. We need to also audit the other facilities that hold gold. We do have a bunch of states that are in for gold. I know Utah was the first one. I'm actually visiting my parents there in Utah right now, which is why I got this scene behind us. Plus, it just fit in for the night. I think Utah was the first one to allow gold for taxes. And when I met with Benjamin from Goldback about a year ago, he said the problem is they don't have a way for you to actually do it. The legislation is there. You can pay your taxes for the state with gold, but no one knows what to do with it and how to write it off on the books, or to show that you've paid. But yeah, I think more and more of that's coming. Goldbacks, you know, people either love or hate goldbacks. One thing I'll throw out there that I was just looking at is I'm taking a bunch of them to the Long Beach Coin Show this weekend. So quick shout out to the Long Beach Coin Show. Look for my booth. It'll have a big banner saying Stacking Surfer there. You know, a lot of the goldbacks I bought a little over $4, and then I bought some more at high fours, and I bought some at the low $5 range. They're now going for just shy of $6. And what's interesting is that is the same price that they trade for. They're about the same price within a few pennies what they trade for versus what you can buy them from online bullion dealers. They've never done that in the past. So either Goldback has changed the way that they sell these wholesale, or we're starting to get to that point where it's worth the right amount of money for you know, bullion dealer to sell them at. But they're at about $6 now, and I think they started at $3. So there's been a doubling in what those are worth. Now, if you melt them down or you just look at the amount of gold that's on them, yes, you're paying like a 95-100% premium for the gold. So I wouldn't stack those, but they can be great for bug out bags. One of these days when I can get around to doing some videos on emergency preparedness, I'm even talking to a friend about designing a product. But goldbacks could be perfect for putting in your car, having a few of them in your wallet. They don't weigh very much, and they do carry some value with them. So, you know, most coin shops will take them, and you know, they'll take them in trade. So anyway, you know, that's something to at least kind of think about with those. And then if you live in a state where they have them, they're fun to use. Kind of practical, kind of not, depends. All right. Yeah, we should buy silver mines. That'd be pretty cool. So if gold goes to say 50K, silver has to go to at least 500K. That's only 1%. Yes, it should. It doesn't have to though. We could have a situation, Will, where silver just doesn't move a whole lot. You know, maybe we're in a Great Depression and there's not a lot of industrial use for it. And if we're not using it as money, it could be something that doesn't go up as much as we want it to. But the reality is, if gold goes to 50,000, you're probably looking at much closer to like a $5,000 gold, in my opinion. It won't be there instantly, but it'll take some time. How many of you guys watching this right now? We got like 72 people on here. How many of you guys have the ability to go out and pay $50,000 for an ounce of gold? I'm guessing very few of us have the ability to do that. So the next thing you're going to do is go back down to silver, like I said earlier, and you're going to drive the price of silver up. If you guys haven't done so already, hit the thumbs up right there and the subscribe and like button. That'll notify more people to the stream we've got here. Also, I don't know if we've got any other YouTubers on here that want to come up and do a quick panel, but we can do that in a minute. If you want to do that, then just put a comment down below here. I'm going to get to those in just a second. And then from there, we'll do a panel if we've got a handful of people. So what happens if they find more gold than reported in Fort Knox? Okay, here's an interesting thing. I don't know how much of this is reality though. I was reading today that if we do the audit and the gold is 3 nines fine or 4 nines fine, then it is not the original gold that was put into Fort Knox, because it should be more closer to 90% gold, since we melted down a lot of these pre-33 gold coins, including most everything they produced in 1933, except for a couple coins that got out. And so it should be more like a 90% purity. So that's interesting. That could be interesting to see what's in there. Do the serial numbers match up? Is it real gold? Is it solid all the way through? Does it have tungsten in the middle, right? There could be a lot of other issues that have to happen. Now, statistically speaking, you can take random samples of one out of, let's say every 1,000 bars, test those. And if they're clean, you're most likely going to be pretty good, especially if you pick them out randomly out of different piles. But if there's more gold there than what we think that is there, it's going to be a good thing for the United States. It's going to prove that we have more gold. We've been buying more. Now, supposedly, we're supposed to report some of this stuff. That's kind of the banking rules that they have out there. It's not really a full-on regulation. I think it's more of a courtesy. But correct me if I'm wrong on that. But if we have more gold than what we think we have, my first question is, are we borrowing it from someone else, or is it real? Is it really our gold? So we'd have to find that out. But if it really is our gold, yeah, I mean, it's going to help. I don't think it's going to affect the gold price down. With the audits and everything going on here, I think it's only positive for gold, because it's going to bring more people to the attention of gold. It's going to get them thinking about it. Some of them are going to think, hey, I need to go out and get some. So I just saw this at a grocery store here in Utah. I know it's backwards, guys. I don't have any way of fixing that, but Fort Knox gold bars. So they had a ton of these there for sale, and they had a ton of gold coins in this big, huge end cap. And let's see, I did take a picture of it. So, this is just kind of a sign of things changing. So those are all gold coins or gold bars that are all chocolate. Let's hope that's not in there. If that's in there, then we have massive fraud, and no one's going to trust this country. All right, I got to go a little faster here, guys. So tonight is Die Hard night. All right, thanks, Sean Precious Bullion, for that. That's funny. All right, so Steve says the gold is not at Fort Knox. It's in Manhattan, first block, or one block from JP Morgan Chase headquarters, down in the granite vaults. There's most likely a lot of gold there too. And Fort Knox most likely still has some gold as well. I'd be very surprised if these places are completely empty. That would really surprise me. All right, let's see. All right, it's really big. It's really deep. Yes, do hit that, guys. That'll wake more people up to what we're trying to share here. And thanks, Al. Okay. Okay, so let's see. B. Duncan says, we have the gold. Trump, after meeting with the Pope in 2017, then moved 650 plane loads of gold out of the Vatican basement, per DOD Jane Harper. Well, let's hope so. If we have that gold, guys, or we have more than what we think, it's going to be really good. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. We could have this too. We could have Mexico nationalizing silver mines. That could happen. Um, yeah, so basically 22 karat gold is another way of saying 90%, guys. Um, so a good chunk of it should be that still, at least I think it would be. And most of the time, if you're going to, if countries are going to refine their gold, they send it off to Switzerland. That can't be a very easy process to do. Probably not worth it. All right, Gerald Draper has come in and told us exactly how to do this thing. He said he will not buy gold for 2,000, let alone 50,000. All right. So Gerald, I hope you got what you wanted below 2,000. That was my price. I wasn't willing to go more than 2,000, but then I didn't have enough, and I wanted to add some more. And I haven't found anybody that's willing to sell me their gold coins for $2,000 an ounce. If you know anybody, let me know. But yeah, it feels like that a lot of times, guys. It's really hard. But I will tell you that today, people are buying gold coins for over $3,000, which tells me that when we get to $50,000, there'll be people still buying coins at $50,000. They just won't buy as many of them, and they'll start buying fractional sizes. So they'll probably be buying a lot of 10th ounces and grams. But it'll still sell. I mean, go back to 2000 when gold was like 289 bucks. Um, if you told them gold was going to be at $3,000 in a few years, they'd say there's no way, no one's ever going to pay for that. Um, yeah, it's a hard one to swallow. I have to say that, and it usually takes a while before I kick in to buy any of that stuff. I want to make sure the price is kind of locked in. All right, let me see what else I got from you guys. All right, let's see. We got 62 likes, 65 watching. We're now up to 81 watching. Please hit that thumbs up, guys. That'll wake up the algorithm for us. I think this is a huge, huge thing that we got to talk about. It's sound money, okay? You know, I'm in technology. There's a lot of people into crypto. Um, you know, I won't put even 1% of my net worth into crypto. I'm just not going to do it. Um, I know too well all the risks that can come from it. And yes, maybe I'll miss out on some major profits and everything, but I like the real stuff. Do I dabble in it a little bit? I do. I really don't see it completely as gambling as some other stackers do and some of my mentors do. But I go after projects that I have a lot of knowledge around and believe that they're going to um, be successful and do good things for humanity. With that said, it's the price that they're at. You have to buy at the right price, or these things are just ridiculous. I do not like any of this meme stuff where people are just basically trying to take all the money and leave people with nothing. Okay, that's just not that is very much like playing Vegas. Um, but what I will say is that to me, it's important to have sound money out there for people to realize that our money used to be made out of gold and silver, and it had a lot of value to it because the money was the value. We got away from all of that. I think we need to get back to it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're all going to be carrying coins around everywhere we go. But to me, it does mean that it would make a lot of sense for a lot of us to, or for all of us to have some of that in our possession, and maybe some of it's in a gold bank at some point if we get back to that. But even if we don't, I still think it's a great thing to have, and I don't think it's an old rock that's going to the wayside. At the end of the day, honestly, if you believe in God and that God created the planet and the universe, then God also created the gold and the silver, and the gold has to be created inside of an exploding star. Therefore, God created the money system that we have based on those metals, and so from that standpoint alone, it's probably a good thing. Now, platinum is another one. Azure brings up platinum. I know he likes platinum as well as gold. My take on platinum is this: um, it is way undervalued right now comparative to it where it's been in the past, and I think it has a massive amount of upside to it. However, it is not really used as a monetary metal anywhere that I know of, so it hasn't been used as money. A lot of its industrial use has been shifting to other things, but it still plays a very strong part, especially in catalytic converters and um, other industrial uses. A lot of auto industry uses platinum for stuff. The issue there is, are we in a recession? Have we been in a recession for the last 3 years? I would argue it's, in a lot of ways, we have been in a recession for a lot of people, and for other people, they have not been in a recession. Um, we have so much borrowing ability and ability to take loans that it kind of masks itself. But I think in all reality, we've been in, I don't really have a word for it besides saying stagflation is maybe the best word for it. But I think it's going to take another industrial revolution of in prosperity, kind of another golden age before you see platinum really spiking up. Um, but some of the charts are showing that platinum could have could start coming up. I do have a little bit of platinum. I don't have a lot of it. If you have stacked enough silver and gold, water and food and emergency supplies that you feel you need for whatever situation you feel may come, then I think platinum is one that you could look at from a more of an investment standpoint. I can't give you financial advice, but it does look like if it goes back to historical levels, it's usually worth twice as much as gold. So if you can buy an ounce of platinum for $1,200 and it goes up to being worth $6,000, I think you did pretty well on that. So we'll see if it does do that. Okay, I gotta try to catch up with you guys. So many comments. All right, you're in Utah as well. Well, welcome. Oh, wait, I'm the visitor. Never mind. I know. I find myself to be funny. My wife says that my jokes are not funny, so don't tell them. So let's see. We've also got space applications too, heat and cold. So you got that as well. Tiger wants to come up. He doesn't have the email link. Well, I thought I sent that to you, but maybe it was just for this. I probably didn't have it for the whole thing. Tiger, we'll do that in just a second here. We're almost there. All right, let me see if I can get down here. I think we did get down here. Okay, so if you guys want to join me up here, I'm going to drop it into the comments here. All right, and then you'll come into the backstage, and I'll let a few folks up if I know you personally or you've got a channel that I've seen. So a couple things I do want to point out real quick here too that we didn't hit completely. So kind of my thoughts. If we go and audit the gold reserves of the United States, wherever they may be, because there's multiple places where they're storing the gold supposedly, and we find that there is no gold, it's completely empty, and the gold's gone and we used it and it was stolen, whatever. Yes, we're going to have a very big problem. It's probably best we just don't know that it's at zero. I do think that would cause some runs on the bank. I do think it would cause a lot of turmoil. Probably some level of inflation. I don't know if it would just completely dump the dollar, but maybe we could have 30% inflation that happens real quickly. Or let's just say a third increase or a third decrease in the purchasing power of the dollar. I do think we could end up seeing some situations that are really crazy if that happens. Let's say the amount of gold is what we think it is, so 8,200 tons. That's one where I believe if we have that, if you look at the numbers that are out there right now, and if you guys come into the back room, just hang tight for a minute. I do believe what's going to happen in that kind of a situation is we're going to be put into a place where we have the ability to then start to talk about revaluing. And I think we've got the ability to really start talking about backing the currency or pegging it against gold. The question will be, do we do it before other nations, or are we going to be reactive to them? So that's where I think we could have some issues. Now, let's say we have a lot more gold in these places in Fort Knox and West Point, and also in the New York Fed. I forget what the fourth one was. Anyway, if we have a lot more gold than we think we have, the question is, will we actually say that or not? We may be holding that back until some strategic reason. We may come out and say, hey, we've got all this gold and we're in much better shape than we thought. It's hard to say. But in all three of those situations, I see it being more positive for people that hold gold versus negative. We still could have an everything crash. You could still have gold go down significantly, same with silver, but it'll go down a lot slower and a lot less than your crypto and your stocks, your bonds and your dollars that you hold, and even your real estate. So I still see that as being a pretty good thing. So let's do this. I got a couple folks in here, and then the last thing we'll kind of do in here too is I bring guys up. All right, so we got a couple folks in here. So we got Frostbite. Welcome.
What's up? How you guys doing?
There we go. Now I can. And Will, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
Doing well. So, what do you guys think? I mean, first off, have you been watching any of the videos from other channels? Have you read any of the news? You guys getting up to speed on some of the things people are talking about today?
I watch a lot of Andy Schectman stuff and things that he puts on. He talks a lot.
He does. Andy does talk a lot, and the thing with Andy that I love is he's got the passion behind it too, right? So,
Oh yeah, he's there.
I mean, put yourself in Andy's shoes. You're going on to channels, so he's already been on probably 2 or 3 channels to record a video before he comes on my channel. And then he might be running off to a place to go talk to and speak at a conference. And with anybody that has a great presentation, they usually there's a fair amount of repetition to it, and there's some importance to it. And imagine you need to have so much belief in what you're sharing and what you say, as well as just excitement for it in order to continue to do that day after day. It could be, I think it could be hard and challenging to do that, but Andy has some great points that he comes in and talks about. And one of the things I love that Andy always hits is he's trying to help us understand the importance of being able to back your own household with something of real value. He doesn't say you have to buy from him. He doesn't say you have to buy today, but he's trying to help all of us realize that there was a time when we used to actually hold, the assets that had real value to them. And now a lot of times we have assets that are overinflated. Cars. When's the last time a car went up in value that wasn't like some crazy expensive collector vehicle, right? The only time I know is when we had a bunch of inflation kick in and they printed one out of every $3. Besides that, I've never had one of my cars go up in value. But anyway, Frostbite, what do you think? Where do you stand on some of these
my
things?
cars do. I drive classics.
Yeah, there you go. then you have them.
Well,
so if you got the classics, then it's a whole different story.
As soon as you hit the curb. So as soon as you hit the thump onto the road, you've lost 15%. So don't buy new at all. I would
my
love
car
to
will go through most other cars.
I would love to see audit. Couple of reasons. One, number one, I think it's a misnomer to say it's never been audited. I don't think the audits that they've done are public release. Now, are those audits superficial? Are they full in-depth audits? Finding out there's information regarding duplicate, fake serial numbers on some of the bars that came out of UK. Are we going to find some potential for that? Maybe. We don't know yet. But to say that it's never been audited since 74, I think it's a misnomer. I just don't think it's been publicly released. I think it's time for a public release of an audit. But if they don't find what we're hoping they find, do you think they'll release it publicly? That I don't know.
I'm sure somebody knows what's in there.
Yeah, I think that if they say, and this is just Frosty's opinion, that's all. Okay. But I think if they find that there's not what they expect in there, we're going to get a very legalese answer, so that it doesn't jeopardize where we're at in the economy.
It'll be adjusted.
Too many countries utilize the dollar as a basis, and so I think that could shatter our economy. So, I mean, we're already in a kind of a bad place anyway, but I think that could really hurt us. What's the end result of that? I don't know.
Welcome, Tiger, by the way. We've always got to have at least a a tiger around too to help us.
Yeah, there aren't that many of us on the channel.
No, there's not too many tigers.
Everyone.
So,
by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
My last name is Loudner, like the opposite of a
Loudner.
silencer.
There you go. I like it. It's good.
Or suppressor. Yeah. Suppressor.
Yeah.
One of the problems with my last name is no one will ever pronounce it correctly. That's one of the reasons I don't use it. The other one is I got to distance myself a little bit from my day job.
But Surfer, I can spell it for you. It's Butthead.
Yeah, that's funny. But okay, going back to it, Frosty, though, real quick. So, there's a concept of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Okay. For us to have no gold makes no sense. Okay. I don't understand how that would be a situation where it would have reality into it. The amount of tons that we have could be different than what we believe they are. That's possible. I also don't think we have 50,000 tons of gold either. Some crazy amount that we're just totally hiding. But what we're really only talking about is the amount of gold that's been minted or put into, bars or assayed, right? We're not talking about gold that could be in the ground. Yep, and jewelry. So we're not talking about the gold that's potentially in the ground that hasn't been harvested. I mean, I've heard for a long time we have more oil in Alaska than in the Middle East. It's just not as easy to get to. It's more expensive, and we're basically don't want to use our oil first. Whatever the reason may be, is that totally true? I don't know. But I do believe that there's still gold in Fort Knox. I was on a call with someone that seemed pretty credible at one time that told me they've been in there and that it was, that it's real. And that was on another stacker's, private call. I've got Magnum here. He messaged me when he saw my thumbnail and said, "Hey, I'm really excited about talking about this." And he believes that it's in there and he's going to guarantee it for us. So,
I believe there's a ton
guaranteed,
of
guys.
Fort Knox. My question is not that there's not what we think. Again, there's a lot of other artifacts located in Fort Knox that a lot of the general public aren't aware of. There are paintings, there are sculptures, there's all sorts of historically significant facts that are there. They've been documented. Some of them have been, even for other nations, during times of war, they've been shipped to the U.S. and stored in Fort Knox as a source of protection. So there's a lot of stuff the general public just doesn't know about. And again, to say that they've never been audited, I think is a misnomer. I think it's time for the public to kind of have an idea. My question in turn would be, what's the detriment if they other countries find out exactly what we have? Is there a negative connotation to that question?
Well, at some point, China's going to step up and Russia's going to step up, and they're going to say, "This is what we've got. Show us yours."
Well, so here's what happens. We end up in a gold Cold War, right? So this is where things could get really interesting, is to the point you're saying, Frosty. The number I heard was at some point, I think during World War II, we got up to 30 tons of gold that we were holding for Europe and other countries. And then they started repatriating their gold. And we also brought Bretton Woods in, right? So we were all of a sudden the gold global reserve currency, and this gold starts leaving. That starts messing up that backing that you have, right?
That's why Nixon took us off the standard.
Exactly. And then what happens is they start turning in their certificates, and they take the gold out. And eventually someone in here said that there's not enough gold on the planet to use it as money again. And I would argue it depends on what you're valuing the gold at. And there are ways to kind of play around with that a little bit. There's not enough gold. Well, I'd have to think through this. I don't know how many ounces of gold are on the planet, so there may not be enough gold for every person on the planet to have a 1 ounce coin. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be used as money that's out there. It may just be the money that people with a lot of money are moving around. Silver comes down below that, and we have other metals. But I do think there's probably a situation where we can get ourselves into kind of like a Cold War with gold, where if we go and revalue the gold and we claim to have a certain amount, will the other nations accept that? Will they accept that we're going up to that amount, because they're now going to be feeling some inflation if we then go and print new dollars to utilize that new wealth we've just found? That will cause inflation. That will cause a lot of shipping of inflation overseas to people that are holding the bonds. So we could have some issues that come up with that.
What happens if we value it at one price and then turn around China and Russia value it at something else?
So technically it's not their money. They can't revalue it. What they could say, though, is they could see, this is unlikely, but they could see that a dollar is worth more, therefore we're willing to pay more for it. I mean, you see that today, right? You go down to Mexico and people would rather have a US dollar. You go to different foreign countries, they'd rather have a US dollar. They're willing to give you more goods and services for it. So to a degree, I think those things could happen. But I highly doubt they're going to give you a lot more. So, okay, let me take it back. If we go to a gold backing again that's redeemable, that's where things could get really interesting, because these other countries may try to basically drain the country of the gold. And Andy's brought this up on a couple videos where he says, they may go and do a gold pegging, or they may do a gold backing, but it may not be redeemable. Is a gold backed currency that's not redeemable valid? Is it actually backed by gold?
It's not.
Russia came out a while back and said that they were pegging the ruble to gold to a certain extent on what, $5,000 rubles to an ounce. Okay, now I have been in Russia. I was in Russia in 05 and 06. And back there, the dollar was king. Okay, you could take the dollar down and trade it for anything. As a matter of fact, you get more rubles for the dollar trading on the street than you could through the bank.
Yep. Yeah, I believe that too. And so, Frosty, to your point, if the gold's not there, or if we've got more than people believe, will they believe us? If we have less, it's easier for them to believe us. But if we have more, it's harder for them to believe us.
Yeah. The other one is, you're talking about evaluation, right? So if you're looking at the price of that, remember, we don't set the price of gold. That's set by the London Bullion Market Exchange. So we can't say, well, we're going to raise it, we're going to lower it. We're talking about gold in relation to the US dollar. So just for the people who didn't follow that transition of thought, just so you're aware that we transitioned that thought there. But one thing that's really important to understand, and if you look back at, this is a statistic that the first time I saw it, I was like, no way. And then the more I thought about it, up to, if not more than 80% of the currency that we have ever printed in the history of the United States doesn't belong on shore. So
yeah,
if anybody wanted to bring that back and claim that for gold, 80% of that does not exist within the United States. So FYI, okay? So again, there is a major issue understanding that 80% of all currency, and that when you're talking back in Reagan's time frame, it was about 50%. Okay, up at the end of his presidency, starting into Carter, it ended up being even higher. I think it was a little before that. I think my timetables pushed back a little bit. I think it's before him. By the time it was Reagan, it was almost at 80%. That's a lot of U.S. money, a lot of U.S. currency that doesn't belong to us anymore. Mm-hmm. So if they are going to do that, those countries could bleed us dry. So there's an underlying precursor, an underlying condition that we exist in because of the market that we've done abroad. So there's a lot of issue regarding people turning in the currency for gold. So backing our money on gold, while it's a great idea, could screw our nation. So there's a lot of things to think about. I don't think they're going to take this lightly.
We would have to kill the dollar first and then go to something else.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to do that hyperinflation. They're going to, our money's going to tank. Then they're going to pop it. They're going to do what they do and basically trade it in for pennies. It'll be the same thing that happened in Russia. You talked about Russia in the 80s when you woke up one morning and all of a sudden the money you had wasn't enough to buy a loaf of bread when, 24, 48 hours ago, you had quite a bit of money.
I think that was Weinberg, Germany.
Well, same thing happened in Russia during the time frame. My wife is,
Yeah.
she was born there, and her father was a banker during that time frame. They were extremely wealthy. The next morning they woke up, they could barely buy bread. They lost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And Frosty, you have these countries too, like Lebanon and I think Iraq, where they were playing games with trying to take gold for oil. So, there's always games being played with finances, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're in a country where the dollar's worth more, or whether you're in a country where you're doing barter, or you're trying to figure out how to get off of the US system. Ray Dalio has some great videos on YouTube, if you guys haven't checked them out yet, that talk about like the currency cycles. And we're at the point where our currency is going down and the next currency is going to come up. He talks heavily about that being China. However, China's made some pretty big mistakes financially and in real estate that could cost them. Now, maybe they'll be able to pull out of it with technology, with their AI tech, and maybe they'll be able to do it with some dominance, with just the amount of people they have. But the reality is it may not be China, it could be another country.
Yeah. China went into debt putting up infrastructure, whereas we've let our infrastructure crumble. We've got nothing for infrastructure, but China's got all these brand new cities sitting there empty.
That's true. So there's so many factors to this whole thing. So, Frosty, you brought up a good point, though. It's problematic for us to tomorrow have, let's say, Elon Musk walks in with a camera crew behind me in this building, okay? And they go in there and they take a bunch of samples. They look through everything. People are picking up everything super heavy, right? Short of taking every bar out of there, I don't know how you're going to totally audit every serial number on. It's going to take forever to do that. So you're going to have to use stats. You're going to have to use statistics to take random samplings of the inside each of the vaults, and you're going to have to go off of that. And that's what other countries are going to do too. But let's say we did that and we find out there's 8,200 tons of gold in all the repositories combined in the United States. And we right now have gold valued at $42.22 plus a few more decimal points. And we get into a situation where we decide, hey, we're going to take it up to $5,000 because that's what we think it's really worth. The moment we do that, we are going to cause problems for everybody else that's holding US dollars, as Frosty brought up, and people that are holding US bonds. Yeah. And are we ready to deal with that kind of a war? Now, if we go and value it even at just $3,000, it's the same thing. We've just created $800 billion out of thin air. You're causing inflation. Now, $800 billion is going to be hardly anything compared to what we've done the last several years. And it's probably not enough to cause any kind of a war, but you go and take it up to $142,000 per ounce of gold. That's like dropping a nuclear bomb in this area. So I don't see that ever happening until you have a situation where a complete financial meltdown's gone down and the country's just deciding whatever they want to do with stuff. And they go and do it. There's like ghosts. Did you see that ghost walk past me right there? That was crazy. Oh my gosh, there's a ghost again. Okay, so
security patrol.
It's a security patrol, man. There's a ghost walking. It's like, I bet you could drive a Tesla Cybertruck down here and you'd see all the little people pop up on the screen, the ghosts. I don't know if you guys have seen that on videos. It's kind of funny.
One of those Civil War soldiers.
The Civil War soldiers. But when you look at this, let's kind of talk through what's the possibility of what can come out of it. So, one thing that I've heard is we could have a stable coin, cryptocurrency that is created, that would then be pegged to gold. It would be tied to it, and there would have to be a finite amount of that currency. Now, we all know what happens down the road. They always make more of it.
Something like the unit.
It could stabilize.
Here's the issue.
So something like the unit.
Here's the issue. Sorry, I interrupted.
We can hear you.
Oh, good, because I wasn't sure because I was getting talked on a lot. Anyway, the thing is that that's what you get when you get 4 alpha males in a room together. So basically, what happens here is that you have pegging is not the same, okay? Because Zimbabwe pegged, and they say, "Oh, it's stable, it's stable, it's stable." What, 4 months, 5 months later, they revaluated it to like 44% of what it was, if I remember what I heard correctly off of Lynette saying. Pegging is not the same. What did I do, Frosty? You're giggling.
I didn't say anything.
Okay. So anyway, you watch out for that guy. He giggles over everything. Anyway, all joking aside, pegging means nothing. Pegging is a temporary promise where you are going to find out the rules of being an Indian giver. They're going to take it back, and they're going to start doing what they want to do when everybody starts relaxing. Pegging's worth nothing. Going back to a gold standard, I hear you, Frosty.
Well, Tiger, real quick, can you explain what a peg means to you?
Pegging means is that we're going to allow you to have the backing of the gold, but you're not allowed to have it in exchange. You can't exchange the fiat and get the equivalent amount of gold. They keep it, they own it, they control it, you own nothing.
I think the public could catch on to that pretty quick.
Yeah, well, that's what happened in 1933 when they did the gold. A lot of them didn't turn it in. I think it was like plus or minus 25%. And then when they came
Our
after
grandfathers
the silver,
buried it in the yard.
yeah, they shipped that out overseas, or they lost in a boat accident.
The other thing with the Tiger too, when you peg, you're basically kind of picking a price, and I don't know of any pegging where it's 100% backed, right?
That's why
I've never seen that before.
That's why it's pegged, not backed.
Exactly. So it's something that's kind of a temporary. We're going to put the stick in the mud right now, and we're going to count this as how much our money's worth today. But inevitably, they go back and they start printing more money. I think Frostbite just lost it. He had to go into hiding.
So he had trouble with the giggling.
He was giggling too much. But I agree with you. I don't think pegging solves it. I'm not even sure if gold backing solves it. You know, if we want to go straight to the Constitution, we're not supposed to do any kind of backing. We're not supposed to have any kind of paper notes. The Constitution clearly states it has to be minted gold and silver coins.
Well, then you go back to the same thing. Is there enough coins to go around for everybody that's on the planet, or even in the United States?
My question is does that where something like the gold back comes into play, because it's so fractionated and so micronized that it might attain that goal? I don't know if it might, or yes or no. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But in theory, it's so small, especially with the newest version, the 2.5, the half gold back, is that maybe, I don't know all the statistics to give you an answer for that. Welcome back, Frosty.
Yeah, sorry, I was dying. I had to get off camera.
I know you were.
I'm heading that way in a minute.
But Tiger, I agree. Like, pegging's dumb. If we do pegging, it's not going to last very long. It's not even like a very good like finger in the dam. Okay, the dam's going to break. Okay.
All I need is for it to do something that I can pay off my house.
So I just
that's going to totally help. That's going to come with the hyperinflation, and when they start to change it to the new system, that's the time.
Yeah, you'll have X number of days to get everything taken care of. And BlackRock holds my mortgage, so I'm just going to call them directly and say, "Hey, you take gold and silver?"
Yeah, why not?
Here's the thing, though. What I want to see too is I want to see property taxes go bye-bye. Do not tie stuff to your property. You pay your house off. You got to own that thing.
You would actually own it then, not the state.
Exactly.
So that brings up a really good question, and this is something that I wanted to talk, and I was hoping we get into that area. If we end up in an area where there is massive hyperinflation, what are the best? And obviously we're not financial advisors. We're not making those calls for anybody. But what are some of the best choices that people are going to have? because I'm looking at it and like my stuff is coming out of my 401k. I'm shutting the stuff down. My house is getting paid for. I'm securing my property. I'm securing my house because that's one thing that I have to make sure I keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can work. I can find ways to pay things and cover stuff and do whatever, but I can't have my family without a home. So what are the safeguards? What are the things that people put into place? I'll pay some penalties because if money goes to waste, then the penalties are nothing. But
I have a question for you that relates to this to help answer this, Frostbite. What happens if we were to, let's say the gold is there, okay? And let's say we even find more and we audit it, people believe it. We even let foreign countries come and look at it and they go, crap, you guys have all this stuff. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. Let's say we go and revalue gold to $100,000, okay? And what happens to people that don't have an ounce of gold?
They're screwed.
They don't get that valuation up to 100,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
well, so that's I want to correct something that Tiger said. They don't get screwed. They just don't reap the benefit.
Well, if
There's
they
no
don't-
negative to them. They just don't get the benefit.
Yeah, there's
They
another
don't have
step to
enough-
that, Tiger.
if they don't have, and the value of the currency is so awful, you can't afford to buy anything. You can't even afford to put food in your family's mouth. That seems like screwed to me.
But here's the thing, though, Tiger. Let's say tomorrow they value gold at 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Your food is not going to change the next day necessarily at the grocery store. Okay, like valuing gold to 100,000 did not just go and cause massive hyperinflation.
Correct. Yeah.
What happens is now the United States can basically, I'd have to go do the math, but if we go from $42 up to $3,000 for an ounce of gold right now, we basically create an $800 billion. If someone wants to do the math, they can put it in the chat for us. But if you go from 42 up to $100,000, you now have the ability to go and print trillions of dollars, right? So now does the US go and print trillions of dollars to pay the debt off, or do they just hold the gold over to the side and they continue to, print more fiat dollars? So there's some tricky things here that I'm not an economist, so I don't know exactly what the ramifications are, but there are some supply demand, tables here that would definitely start to affect things. So now if we do go and print $5-10 trillion, whatever that number is, and that money goes back into the system, then yes, Tiger, it would start to become harder for people to afford things. Now, if it did trigger us into hyperinflation because people are just not willing to take dollars anymore, they want to get paid in gold now, and they start demanding that, and you start to get into a cycle of hyperinflation, then it comes down to, does your job start to pay you more than you were paid, previously? And if it doesn't, then you start to get into that situation where you're screwed and you're not able to feed your family. And if that happens to be 99% of the country that doesn't hold gold, then you have to get into a universal basic income situation where the government is basically rationing food and everything. You just get into a huge, massive problem. So
Well, you have to go
what I'm
back
hoping-
to what they did in Weimar Germany and see how things were handled then, because that's what it was. You had people buying
Yeah,
a
it wasn't
local
good.
bread
It was not
wheelbarrow
good.
full of cash.
It's true, Will. So, what I'm hoping really happens here is I don't want to see gold go up to $100,000. Okay. I do hold gold. I don't want to see it go up there because I believe the side effects of the gold going up there are going to create a worse place for my children to be raised in. What I'm hoping happens here is we're very responsible in how we go audit these facilities and how we disseminate the information, what we find. To what Frosty said at the beginning, if there's nothing in there, I'd rather not know. Now, at some point, we may not be able to hold that information back and it may have to come out. The way that Doge is ripping through the government right now and finding all kinds of information, they don't seem to care about the ramifications that are coming out of some of these organizations. They just seem to care about finding the fraud and fixing the inefficiencies, right? And in hitting them pretty hard. So I'm hoping they
At
understand
some
that
point,
this
you're
one's
going to crumble a
more
country with
sensitive.
that.
Yeah, this one's pretty sensitive. This would be like saying that nuclear weapons are not real and we really don't have any aircraft carriers. It's pretty drastic if the gold's not really there.
Well, and again, to kind of reiterate that point, there's a difference between identifying and pointing out fraud, like blatant use, blatant abuse of fiscal. And I've talked about this before many times. When we talk about problems with government, talk about what the problem is, right? It's not the people that are doing the work. It's usually wrapped around finance, right? Good stewardship of finance. So them going through and ripping this stuff apart, I got zero issue with. What I would have a problem with is if they find out that there's nothing here, because that means everything that we've based our economy on is a lie. And the ramifications from that is totally different than finding $4.7 trillion in fraud abuse in Social Security.
For sure. I completely agree.
Right.
I just hope they realize that this is different in the magnitude that this could be on.
My question
yeah, go ahead.
There was a section, I forget, I think it was like 4 trillion dollars went into some black hole that they can't trace. I mean, that as far as I'm concerned, that weakens our status internationally, because they're like, well, if you can't manage your money, how much money do you really have? And if you don't have that much, maybe we can overtake you. So, I mean, it's just whether quotas in there or not. When you got Doge trying to track the dollars through the statistics, the documents that should have been kept, when things like that happen, is that going to weaken us just as much as if Fort Knox is empty?
Yeah, because that'll kill our currency.
We're playing 4D chess here, guys. Like, not even 3D chess. It has like time ramifications to this thing. Like, when the order of how you play different moves. That's why this is very difficult and tricky. I don't know that there's a way to fix the predicament we're in. That's one of the reasons that I do some preparedness on this side for my family, because one, I live in California. We could have a massive earthquake, and I'm not waiting for FEMA to show up and deal with all that. Two, we don't know exactly what can happen with these different situations. So I have 2 points I want to make real quick, and then I want to come back to where I kind of sidetracked Frosty on this a little bit, which is like, how do we prepare and how do we get out of this? You know, how do we get our families in a little better position? So one thing I wanted to just point out here that was a good point from Craig. I've seen this in inner city areas where you have a lot of poverty in like project buildings, like in New Jersey and New York. A lot of them are free of plumbing because people that have been put into them take the copper out and they go sell it. We get into a situation where we have super expensive commodities. People start selling all their wedding rings, all their jewelry. They go find things, they sell it, they deal with all of that. So we could see some really interesting times here where there's a whole kind of different market we're not used to seeing. So that's one point I wanted to see there. This was another one that just came up too, from Joker's Wild. Is crypto the Trojan horse for the digital CBDC? So, you know, CBDC is a name. It's not necessarily a thing. We've attached the name to a thing and we call it CBDC, but it doesn't have to be created by the central bank in order for it to have the same features as what we believe a CBDC to have. Anything that's digital can be programmed in a certain manner. Bitcoin, you can actually increase Bitcoin beyond what it's, 40, what is it? I'm going to screw it up. 32 million coins?
21 million.
21, I forget the exact number, but
21 million.
21 million. So you can go much higher than that if you can get 51% of the people holding the nodes and the miners to agree, let's do a hard fork and change it. Okay, so anything can be changed. It may be very improbable for it to change, but it can. So what I would just say in general is I think we're going into a situation where we've gone away from real money and sound money. We've gone into what we used as an excuse that coins are too heavy to carry. We need to go into a paper money. So let's back the paper money with gold. And then after a while, we decided, hey, you know what? Everybody keeps trying to take our gold away and our silver away, and it's just becoming so expensive to mint this stuff. And we want to issue debt and grow our government bigger, and bureaucracies start to form. All of a sudden, we now go to fiat system. The fiat system problem we have is kind of like the AI problem. A lot of jobs are going to get destroyed with AI. certain people are going to learn how to retool themselves, and they're going to be very efficient, and they're going to keep their jobs, and other people are going to have to find a completely different way to make money. And we could potentially have a situation, especially with robotics coming, where there's just fewer jobs done by humans. Humans are made to work by the sweat of their brow. If we do not have things we need to do to get up and work hard to provide for our families, we don't live very long. I know people that retired at 30 and they go golf for 2 years and their life goes down the drain, their health goes down the drain, and they end up going back to work because they just didn't have enough purpose. We're going to have to find things like that. When we get to the monetary system, it can kind of be the same way. We have a situation where, and with the AI stuff, it can hit all the industries almost at the same time. That's why it's a big issue. When automobiles replaced horses, it was just the transportation district, right? The transportation sector. With AI, it could be all the jobs. When we look at money, when we're starting to look at fiat currencies, it's all the countries have fiat currencies. If they all crash at the same time, we have a massive problem that we have to deal with. So that's why I say we're playing like 4D chess here. It's going to be difficult to deal with it. And let's say you have 100 ounces of gold. That doesn't mean you're going to find someone that'll take your 100 ounces of gold and give you, food and stuff for it either. You might need to have some seeds. You might need to have other things out there too, depending on what happens. So I'd love to revisit a little bit with you and Will and Tiger on this too. So no matter what happens going forward, what's going to happen is going to happen. We're not going to have a lot of influence on it. I've never had Elon Musk look at my tweet, but I'm also not, I don't have a big, my channel is tiny. It's bigger than it was, but it's still relatively small. When we look
I'm
at
sure
things
you
like
guys
this,
know Bill Holter, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Bill Holter his thinking is it's going to happen on a Friday, and over the weekend you're going to have a 72-hour and it's going to crash. And
that's usually how it happens.
I'm kind of halfway in his,
That's usually how it happens,
Yeah.
and that's what happened in this old Soviet system. Frosty's wife can attest to it. My wife can attest to it. They all went to bed one day on a Friday, and the next day they were all broke.
Well, if that happens, the United States is going to crumble. We are going to have kind of problems in the streets. We got enough people now that are just going to freak out. It was about 2013. They killed the EBT card in East Texas and Southern Oklahoma. It affected everything all the way up into Oklahoma City. People were already looting Walmarts, and it wasn't even 24 hours. 24 hours without their EBT card, they were already cleaning out the Walmarts.
Oh, I believe that. That's happening in West Virginia, at a town in southern West Virginia I used to work at. And they're basically poor ever since the coal mines went kaplooey many years ago. I went back there to take care of some other type of business. It wasn't going back to work. And I went to the Walmart, and it was all shut down. I was told why. It's because they can't afford to keep open. What do you mean they can't afford to keep open? So everybody's stealing from them left and right. They lost money hand over fist. That's going to get worse if it happens as you describe it. It's happened here.
Well, they're doing that right now. And how many cities right now are closing down Walmarts in particular neighborhoods where people are just walking in and stealing stuff?
Yeah, well, bank branches are closing everywhere, guys. They're closing a lot of the bank branches. Look, we're in a financial position as a planet at this moment where we've never been in like this before. At some point the dam's going to break, and it's not going to be pretty. I try not to get into the totally negative on the channel, but when you look at it, it doesn't take much for bank runs to happen today. And all we need is one bail-in, and everybody's going to lose their mind, and they're going to want to go take their cash out. I recently made some more purchases of precious metals at some higher prices than I ever wanted to pay, but much lower than spot price recently. And it's required me to, one of the purchases was cash. I had to take cash out of the bank. I had to order it. It took a week to order the cash. I wasn't ordering like a crazy sum, but I was ordering a decent amount. I had to wait a week, could not get the cash out. And then I went to the bank each day and got a little bit more out. And they just didn't have it. And I found out, like, I live in Orange County, California. There was one branch of Wells Fargo that had money. The rest of them didn't have it until the next day. So, and the bills were all wrapped in Federal Reserve note wrappers. So, we're in a situation where there's just not a lot of liquidity right now. The banks can have zero reserves. When you have zero reserves,
It's a
where are you
problem.
getting the cash from to get
Yeah,
people
that's a
to
problem.
come want their money? So, that we got ourselves into this problem. And I don't mean the four of us and everybody watching this. I mean, as a nation, as people in the
As
world,
a country, yeah.
as a country. Look, we got to this point where everybody needs a granite countertop in their kitchen and in their bathrooms. I grew up with linoleum floors. What were those things made out of? They're kind of like springy plastic or something.
Yeah.
And you would drop like a heavy jar on the floor and your mom would die and be freaked out, not because it broke the tile, but because it bounced but left a big, huge like divot in the thing, right?
Yeah.
And we used to have like, just inexpensive materials in a house. Now, even a little condo that might only be 800 square feet is decked out like a $10 million house inside, just at a smaller scale. Everything we have, like, kids expect that they're going to walk into some pretty nice conditions when they leave their parents' house. And we've gotten away from like smaller
They're
homes. We've
spoiled.
gotten away from all that stuff, right? That's all possible because of debt. We really would not see that kind of growth in if we didn't have a 2% inflation rate or higher. It's usually always been 5 anyway, just so you guys know. It's never really been 2%. But that is growing stocks. It's growing wealth, right? And certain people make a lot of money. It passes around. They buy more nice stuff. The more debt you can throw to things and all this fraud we're seeing, it's just an example of that. It allows the economy to grow at a crazy, pace that was never really sustainable.
Back
And
in
we're
the
going to pay the
80s.
price for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Back in the 80s, my first house was a VA house. Oklahoma City crumbled when the oil field shut down. I mean, it just died. There was 6 VA houses or HUD houses on every block. My first house, I paid $26,000 for a 3-bedroom brick. And I remodeled it myself, but still. And my mom worked for FDIC, and she closed banks when all that happened in '84. So I've seen it happen here in Oklahoma City. I've seen what going down to, nobody could get a job. Nobody could find a job, even at $5 an hour. Or actually, back then it was $3.50 or $3.75 an hour.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'll give you I'll be very high level with my family's experience in banking. So I come from a banking family, and this is back in 2008. I can't say that the family business was blameless of everything, but it's a savings and loan, and savings and loans used to make a lot of their money by owning shopping centers and by really giving loans out to
Business real
individuals for
estate.
their homes and real estate stuff, right? Well, the Fed changed the rules before the 80s where they could it was in the 80s. It's all, you can get all of this information, by the way, not specifically on this business, but on the industry from The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a great book. If you guys haven't listened to that, I recommend everybody go listen to that this year. It's long. Get it on audiobook. It's going to take you forever to go through it, but it's an awesome book. What happened to the savings and loans is they basically took away their profitability, which made it so that these businesses, which are publicly traded, had to become more risky in the way they lend money. That's how you got subprime lending. The Feds should have never allowed subprime lending. A lot of that goes back to President Clinton, and I forget the initiative, but it was around having everybody be able to own a home. Not everybody should own a home. Not everybody should manage a home or know how to take care of one very well. Anyways, these things start to build. You end up with a couple S&L scandals in the 80s, and it was fraud that was going on, but it was like two savings and loans, and it kind of cascaded to a couple others, and they had to fix a few things. But after that, every savings loan that I know of had 2 Federal Reserve members sitting on their board, and they were aware of things that were going on. And when everything fell apart in 2008, that group of institutions was not bailed out like the banks were. So, call it what you want to call it, but to me, it looked like they were basically trying to condense down how many lending institutions we had at that time. I could see that happening with regional banks going forward too. The big banks, they will never let them totally fail. It's too hard. But it all comes down to what Azure just said here. It's derivatives and fractional banking. That's really been the death nail of the banking industry. Actually, I'll leave that up there for a minute. So what ends up happening here with things is, and in 2008, we kind of had a run on the banks, even though you guys probably didn't see it that way. But what ends up happening with a lending institution is you can have a bank that's worth $1 billion, for example, meaning on its books, it has $1 billion of assets. Okay. And it may only have 50 million in liabilities. Okay. Just as an example. But they didn't have to keep a lot of reserves. And if their cash number goes below that reserve number because there's a run on the bank, they actually lose their charter and they get flipped over to the FDIC, and the FDIC basically takes all those assets and gives it to another bank overnight. And whoever's holding stock in that previous bank loses everything. You don't get paid anything for that. It's gone. And so you have this big transfer of wealth that goes on. Well, what's even worse than just those things that can happen, it's fractional banking, right? That's what's causing it. If you don't have any reserves to back yourself up, you become illiquid. You can't pay back the people that have deposited, and therefore you get into these problems. And they start creating these dumb laws, and they do other stuff, and then they pull them back. Then you have derivatives, which is basically where you are going to rehypothecate every ounce of gold and silver that's sold multiple times over and create this massive derivatives market in the quadrillions to where things can fall apart. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is, we live in a time, Azure Blue said this earlier, we don't live in a time where you guys should be fearful. Okay, you should be enjoying as much of life as you can, and all these great amenities and modern technologies we have today. But you do want to prepare, because we never know when something can go south. You could lose a job. You could have a natural disaster, or we could have a financial system that starts to crumble. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, to myself, how do I prepare my family for that? And so, I'll just throw out a couple things I've done, and then I want to hear from you guys. So one of the things I've done, being in Southern California, there's like no lakes. There are no rivers by me, just a big, huge ocean that you don't want to drink the water in. Okay. It's like totally polluted. And anytime it rains, you can't go in there for 3 days, or you'll get like sick with bacterial infections. Okay. There's not a great way to desalinize the water. So the first thing I've worked on doing is getting water for my family for a certain period of time. The longer the period of time you can go, the better. But water takes up a lot of space, and it's not easy to store. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did is I got food storage that lasts for 30 years so that I can pay for it now and kind of wait over the next 30 years to kind of hopefully never use the stuff, because it's not the best tasting stuff in the world, but I have that. I do have a video a long time ago where I show you guys for like $30. Let's see, I think it was like $50. You can basically create, it was about 400 pounds of food that'll last 30 years. And then I also I cycle through canned food that'll last, 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, and I rotate it. The next thing I did is I got stuff like constitutional or junk silver, just in case we get into a bartering situation. I've got these small denominations to buy eggs and milk and other stuff like that, but I don't know where a flipping farm is anywhere near me. If I'm not using a car, there's not a cow anywhere near me. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. So I've also got seeds, and I've had gardens in other states that I've lived, and I know how to garden, and I have books that can help me with, figure out pests and other things like that. So I've done those things. And then I also own gold and silver, just so that I can either barter or recover when things come back. And so you can go down this rabbit hole, guys, of getting into complete crazy end of the world stuff where you spend all your money on trying to prep and get completely wild. And I don't think that's the way to go. But I do think there's things you can do that will help you get into a situation where you can kind of sleep better at night, knowing that you're prepared for 80% of the things that might happen. And that other 20% is what I leave up to God and basically say, okay, you're just going to have to help me through the rest of that stuff. If I'm going to make it. But with all of that said, to me, that's been where the precious metals go in. Is I look at it as a way for, money. It's true money, and I also look at it as a way of being able to create a savings that's just a little bit harder to sell than crypto. You can press a button with crypto and it's gone. Precious metals, you got to take an extra step, and I think that's a feature, not a I don't know what's the other word.
Detriment.
No, it's definitely not a detriment. I've been there.
It's not a detriment, but a negative, I guess. Yeah, detriment, negative. And
It's
to
kept
me,
me from spending a lot of money.
well, I'll put some examples out there. I mean, I'm in sales. I get lump sums of money a couple times a year, and I've got to figure out how to live for 6 months off of money I earned 6 months ago. And so there's times where I have believed that there's going to be more inflation, so I've bought some gold with the express intention I'm going to sell it in a year to a year and a half. I hope it's higher, and I'm taking a little bit of a bet doing that. It's not what I recommend to you guys from a stacking standpoint. I recommend holding it for at least 5 years. And like Frosty said, and I said earlier, this is not financial advice. It's some of the strategies I've used. Well, when I bought all that at $1,700, it felt pretty good when I was selling at 25. That was better than me just leaving the money in the checking account. And now I didn't go mortgage my house for it. I didn't go, mortgage my cars for it. I took what I had in some savings, and instead of putting it into a money market earning maybe 4%, I decided to give gold a try, and it worked out. I also did the same thing with food storage. I went and bought, or not food storage, just supplies from Costco. I went to Costco and bought a bunch of supplies as soon as we were allowed to after the pandemic to get back in the stores. And I even bought some when I could see that the stores were probably going to close about a week before it happened, and bought a bunch of supplies. And that basically saved me 20% because of the inflation that kicked in after that. So those are the things I've done. But I'd love to go round robin. So we'll go Frostbite, and then we'll go Will, and then we'll go to Tiger. I'd love to know, are there things you guys have found that are helpful for you to get prepared? And what kind of things are you guys looking out for?
So I've talked a lot, so I'm going to defer to those two first.
Okay. So Will, you want to go first?
Okay, well, I used to be in the horse business, and then I was raised out in the country, so we've had farm, gardens and all that stuff anyway. One thing I do, I played around with a little bit of solar, and I've run some solar backup. So I can actually run my well here on solar. I've got solar panels and the batteries hooked up. I plug it in, I have no issues with water. So other than that, I put up food. I've also got weapons and ammunition and things like that. And one thing I learned, I went early on when all this started happening around 2013, 2014. I moved up to Colorado, and I got tangled up with a group up there, which eventually collapsed. And what I learned was that you can't do it by yourself. You got to have a community,
Yep.
and you need people around you. So I'm much happier back here in Oklahoma now. I like my neighbors. We all get along. We're kind of the same mindset. And, put up your food, make sure you got water. I'll probably have the only working well if something goes down. But, that's what neighbors are for.
I think that's great. And one of the things you mentioned that I think is helpful is I have ways of filtering my neighbor's pool water. We don't have any wells nearby, right? And I will probably share that water that is my neighbor's pool water with them and say, hey, I've got a filter. You don't have a filter. Let's make a deal. It comes down to community. You can't barter with the mirror. You can't. There's no bartering. There's no. It's going to be hard to survive if a situation gets bad. And some of these things could be, a couple days to a couple weeks, and others could be much longer. But it makes a big difference if you have a community. And so, that's a lot what's in here, but we're all over the country in different places. So it's also important to get to know other people in your neighborhood and try to understand, who may have a hard time when they feel like the world's ending versus someone that's going to say, hey, let's figure out how to make it through this and pull together. I think those are important things. But horses are great.
I've never been really the kind that I prefer to laugh through things and let's just do it. I don't sit and worry about gloom and
that's all I know. We've got 4 gigglers on this stream right now. I've heard Tiger giggle before.
Yeah, it's a little overpowering sometimes. For me, go ahead. You first.
No, go ahead, Tiger. I was going to say, go ahead, Tiger.
Okay.
But it is quiet, so we're gonna be as quiet as we can.
Okay. Anyway, basically, long story made short, I'm shy on some areas, and I'm not so shy on the others. I live on the top of a mountain somewhere in West Virginia. I can't find myself someone who knows what to do to dig a well. I bought a book on how to collect rainwater down the sides of your house, one barrel on top of another type of thing, which I'm talking my handyman into building for me. So that's one thing I need to work on. Food, if it's just my wife and myself, I have somewhere between 2 to 3 years worth of non-perishable food that will last approximately 25 years from either emergency essentials or better yet, 4 Patriots. It's still not the healthiest food out there because it's not made for people who have other issues such as hypertension, diabetes, all that. It's just for the generic public, but it will sustain you. We have rabbits that we've been growing and filling up a freezer, to which someone said to me, why do you need that much rabbit food? Well, if our food supply is going to go down, the dog supply's food is going to go down. We'll use some of the rabbits to sustain them because I don't think they want to eat rehydrated everything. Gold, I'm not where I want to be. Silver, I'm not where I want to be, but I am getting there. I have learned the value of precious metals as a savings. As you all know, I was laid out with sepsis. Sorry, that's the wife taking one of the dogs out to go potty. But basically, and the other ones get jealous when someone gets potty time. But basically, we have a situation where I went down. I was not able to earn an income for 2 months, and I had to sell my silver. And I was grateful it was there. Now, personally, I chose selling silver over gold because of the volatility and the chance that I'll be able to buy back close to what I sold it for. I didn't see that happening with gold. I have loads of guns, loads of ammunition, and if there's a shootout, we can last a good long while. Do I have as much as I would like to have? I don't think anyone does. Same thing with gold and silver too. But I'm at a point where I'm waiting for the hyperinflation to hit. And when it does, I'm going to own my house outright and sell as little of this as possible to go ahead and get that goal. So no one is 100%. No man is an island, and we need community, not only here on YouTube, but if we can get our local neighbors to join into the mentality, which is not going to happen for a while because I've tried it a few times. I talk to a brick wall. They don't believe it's going to happen. You can just see it in the way their faces. They just think I'm some sort of weird prepper. So,
Well, that's because you're wearing the tiger hands.
I got that T-shirt.
But Tiger, to your point on that, you tried, right?
Yeah.
You started to have an experience of doing that. I have a friend that's a chiropractor that I did some barter with silver on, and the silver price totally changed like the day later when I agreed to bring it into him, and I was like, dang it wasn't in my favor anymore. Yeah. But I tried. I tested it out. I tried to understand how to do it a little bit more and how it might work. And to your point, I think I think it's not only trying it, but it's thinking through the process, right? Like I never want to go to a store when there's like a major issue. So on here, Azure Blue was talking about where he lives, and he's in Florida by hurricane season. When the hurricanes come, everybody just takes the stores out, right? They just go and get everything. I don't want to have to go out in that mess. I'd rather just not. I'd rather wait it out and not have to deal with that. But if your neighbors haven't started to prepare in any way, and they only have a week's worth of food at any given time or supplies in their house, what do we do when they show up on your doorstep hungry and they're asking for help? You know, there's also an emotional component to all of this that no one really thinks through. And it's the same thing with gold and silver. I mean, most people that have gold and silver probably also have other assets that could be affected by all this stuff we're talking about with Fort Knox and revaluing. You know, we usually have money in the bank. We usually have stocks to some degree, and some of us may have some crypto stuff. If those things all get hit really hard, but gold goes up, you know, that offsets things. Same with silver. But what about the person that doesn't have any of that stuff? Do you share?
I want to address that if I can, because this is something that I've been talking about a long time. It is great to stack silver and gold. It is wise to stack food and water. But some of the best things that you can do is learn the skills to survive. Yep. Learn how to start a fire. Learn how to farm. Learn how to filter water. Tiger, you want to build that water drainage system? Learn how to collect water yourself, right? You have rain gutters. You have that kind of stuff. Understand what that's for. One thing that we went through when I was in the military, we did survival school training, and they gave us 10 different items, and they laid them out there, and they're like, if you can choose 2 of these, which one would you be? Which ones would you take? And everybody's going for the hatchet, and everybody's going for the saw. I grabbed the 200 feet of fishing line and the alarm clock. And they were like, why did you choose those? It's because this ain't my first rodeo. I have the reflective pieces for signaling. I have the little metal pieces that I can do the springs and do fish out of. I've got other stuff. There's other things in here that are more valuable to survival than the hatchet, right? If you can't lash stuff together for survival, how are you going to build your, it's great that you can cut down a tree, but if you can't lash that down, how are you going to put those things together? So my neighbor shows up to my house, or I show up to my neighbor's house. I may not have the goods and the services needed, but you know what? I have skills, and I'm learning the skills to make sure that I can survive and know how to hunt, know how to field dress an animal, know how to, those are the types of things that if you don't have tons of money, learn, because when it comes down to it, those are the skills. You want to know who the people are going to be really important? The tradesmen. Those people who know how to lay brick. Those people who know how to do rock. Those people who know how to put well systems together. Those people are going to be the backbone of our nation. It proved that in the Great Depression that we lived in. So you want to really prepare yourself. If you don't have the money to stack and do all that other stuff, put what you can together. Learn skills. That's the best advice I can give you. Because I am not one of these people who is full on prepared. I don't have 10 years of storage. I've been collecting and stacking, 2 years? So I'm new to this game, right? So there's a lot of stuff I am not prepared for. But there's a lot of stuff that I know how to do, and I'm going to utilize those things when the time comes. And be smart.
That's right? Part of what I did up in Colorado. I was in the mountains, and I learned what works, what doesn't.
Well, yeah, and you only learn those things through trial and error.
The key you said is learn. You can do something, but did you learn how to repeat it? As a kid, I was an Eagle Scout. I was an Eagle Scout at 14, I believe is when I got my Eagle Scout. And I ended up with a bunch of palms. I went to national jamborees and stuff, and I can retain some of it. I learned a lot of survival skills. I even did things where they'd drop you off and you had to figure out how to deal with everything and survive, for the day. you also have to continue to exercise those muscles so that you continue to remember them. I know a lot of knots,
Well,
but I
at
don't
my
know how to
age,
do
I'm
all of
not going
them.
to be running any marathons.
No, but we improve over time, right? And I think what Frostbite's saying too is hugely important. My career, I sell AI software. How valuable is that skill during like an SHTF? It is not at all, as far as selling AI software. But there's skills I've learned in my profession. There's skills I've learned in my other things I do. And like Frosty's saying, part of it's putting this channel together. And even before I put this channel together, I started maybe 5 or 6 years ago, starting to, you know, build more preparedness stuff. When I was debating between doing a prepper channel or doing a gold and silver channel when I started this. And I knew more people that were in the gold and silver space. And I thought, hey, it's better to do something where you have a community than it is to completely start something from scratch on your own. You can make a lot more
Prepper
money doing a
channel is
prepper
really hard
channel.
anyway.
It is hard, but you can make a ton more money from it because there's 1,000 more products to sell with a bunch of people that you can scare the crap out of that are going to go buy a bunch of stuff you're pitching on your channel. Okay.
How do you start a prepper channel? How do you prepare for that?
How do you start a channel anyway?
Yeah, well, you
yeah.
gotta press the button record, and you got to throw it up there, and you got to do stuff like this. Like, I know a lot of you guys will know who Economic Ninja is, and I've met him a couple times. And one of the things
Yeah,
that I
he's
thought,
kind of a
well, yeah, okay, so but here's the point I want to make. I met him at a symposium, a silver symposium, okay, and he was a really nice guy. He took time to answer my questions and talk with me, and that's a cool thing. But here's what I appreciate that he does. Okay, his style may not be everybody's style, but in the conference, people were saying, "What does it take to get started to do a YouTube channel?" And all the panelists were going through all this stuff. You got to go buy $1,000 HD camera. I'm on my Mac, camera here. It's like 1080p. It's not 4K, and I can't adjust anything. And I have to adjust myself to it. But what he did is he pulled his phone out, and while the guy, it was a little bit rude, but while the guy was next to him was getting ready and started, he was starting the video, and he goes, "I just did a live stream and it's done and it's good." And what I appreciated about that is I think we over plan, and I think we over prepare for a lot of things. So for example, Will, you've got your solar panels, you've got maybe a backup generator or maybe a backup solar generator. Well, do you also go and buy $1,000 Faraday bag to put those supplies in that are going to run you $1,000, and you might need 2 of those things, right?
build
What
my
are the
own.
real odds of the EMP taking out everything? It's not 0, but it's probably not 80% either. So you gotta be smart about the things you're looking at. But I love what Frosty said about having skills, learning the skills, and then you got to keep up on the skills too. And if you can't remember all of it, get a book, a paperback book, or probably a paperback book that is not digital, that you can look at and reference later. And raw materials are something that's important, right? So I think all of that is all very valid, and we just don't know what's going to happen. He's dying.
It serves 3 purposes. Okay. It tells me stuff I want to do if I happen to run across something important.
Okay.
It also helps me eliminate the COVID paper cycle, because now I have 100 pages worth of stuff that I can use to wipe my butt with if need be.
That's after you've read it, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you want to keep knowledgeable, but the thing is have stuff on hand, right? I did that jokingly to be funny, but yeah, you want to have stuff, because again, you have to realize if you keep everything electronically, if power's out for 60 days, none of it's good, right? I mean, how are you going to do that unless you have solar?
I'm perfectly fine if that happens.
Right. So have your essentials in paper form.
Well, and look, before the pandemic
Like
happened,
I said, I grew up out in the country.
Yeah, that's a good book, by the way. Before the pandemic hit, I took my daughter that I'm with right now up in Utah, and we went to Disneyland. We live about 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from it. And I brought a bunch of hand sanitizer because we heard things were starting far away from us, but there was some issues. So we went through like a whole bottle of hand sanitizer and probably caused ourselves some cancer with all that stuff going into our hands. But we thought it was just something you would maybe touch. That's a good one too.
That's a great book.
And so, what ended up happening is I could see that this was going to spread. We weren't doing enough to contain things. So I went to Costco and I got one of those big flatbeds and I just loaded the thing up. And they were already running out of toilet paper by that time, but I got a bunch of peaches and a bunch of, beans and rice and brought the stuff home. And I was able to quickly get Mylar bags from Amazon before they ran out of stuff. And I could refresh my 72-hour kits. You guys should all have a 72-hour kit, in my opinion. It's something I keep meaning to do with you guys. I haven't had the time to go through my packs, and mine need to be updated now. They're about 5 years old, so they need to get updated. But I was able to hurry and do that. And then I kid you not, like seriously, within like 2 days later, like nothing was available on Amazon. Nothing was available at Costco. It was gone. So sometimes you got to move quickly on these things. Books like that, you might not be able to even get a book like that. You got to get those now while you're thinking everything's probably okay still. So it's good in the O2 absorbers is what you need too. But don't do that with sugar, salt, brown sugar. You'll destroy it. Plus it does something else to the salt. I think it kind of makes it poisonous. But with the beans and rice, you want to do that. And I also freeze all my stuff for several days to kill anything that's in there. But the key is to do something. The key is not to do it perfectly. There's good, better, and best. Getting books like this are helpful, even if you don't read it before something happens. You still at least have some information, and then maybe go pick a few things out. I think the key to. So I make my own stuff. I don't go buy it off the shelf. I think my 72-hour kit is probably worth about $500 to $1,000 of stuff, but it has like heavy radio equipment in it. It's got weapons in it, and it has it doesn't have the little bars. I have clothes in it. So and my 72-hour kits have enough for 2 to 3 people in them. So they're pretty heavy duty camping backpacks that are pretty decked out, and they have money in them too. So when I say like 500, you got money in there to do stuff with it. You can buy stuff off Amazon for like $50 to $100. They're decent and okay. But I got like folding shovels in them. I've got, a lot of medical supplies. The one thing I don't have yet, those are good. I don't have like a Jace case yet with like antibiotics. That's probably next on my list. And then I would love to.
Okay, on your antibiotics.
Ham radios. Yeah.
On your antibiotics, you can order those online. You can go to and get fish meds. Fish antibiotics are the same as people antibiotics. I've been using them for years. You can get clindamycin, you can get amoxicillin, penicillin, doxycycline, tetracycline. I've got all of it in my med kit that I've put up.
Yeah.
Plus,
so how do we get that
I don't
information
take all the
from
pain
you,
pills
Will?
by Dr. Disney.
It's
real easy. Just look up. It's real easy. You just look up fish meds, fish antibiotics online, and you'll find a bunch of places that sell them.
I may or may not have any horse ivermectin. So there are ways that you can get that too. Veterinarian stuff too. And that stuff actually works really, really well for a lot of things. But the key is to do a little bit of stuff. The other thing is you want to have ammunition. You want to have defense weapons too. But you need to know how to use them. Okay, don't just go buy like a handgun and a bunch of ammo and have no idea how to do it. You're not going to hit things very well.
Well, I want to interject on that.
Yeah.
There is a company out there called Vanish, VNSH. Yeah, we get a lot of that too. But the thing is with Vanish, if you buy from them, sometimes they run specials, or you might just want to buy it outright. They have a laser fake bullet of different calibers. You put it in your gun, and you can practice in your home, and all it does is shoot a laser beam hits the target, and then feeds the information to your cell phone to let you know what you're doing, so you can practice for pretty cheaply.
That's cool.
The only downside is if you've got a semi-auto, you have to re-rack it partially. The other downside is that you don't get the recoil, so you still have to go to
you don't get the noise if you haven't been shooting a gun enough, and you go to shoot a gun with an intruder. You're gonna blow your eardrums out, and you're also going to freak yourself out, and you're not gonna hit anything. You're gonna
you got to get used to the mechanics of the reality of it. But if you want to get practice, and you're worried about money, I would say practice with the laser strike system that Vanish Holsters sells. But you still have to go to some inside firing range, so you get the sound. You get used to the sound, you get used to the recoil, you get used to all aspects of your gun.
I agree. So here's a couple things I want to throw on guns too, and just in general, and ammunition and stuff. I've been in California now. I'm born in California, grew up in California, went to Utah, and I've kind of married life. We've lived all over the country from coast to coast. One of the places I've lived a decent amount of times up in Utah, and you have a lot of people in Utah that do a lot of prepping and a lot of emergency preparedness stuff. It's in the culture, but I have friends that have like 50,000 rounds of ammunition. And I ask them if they're going to be the militiaman that's protecting the neighborhood. Like, that's a lot of ammunition. Now, you can barter with it, you can trade with it. The things to understand here too is you need to be proficient with the gun. So one, don't do what Tiger's telling you until you know how to clear a chamber. Okay. And you need to know how to clean a chamber, or you're gonna kill yourself. You need to know how to use the weapon and use it appropriately. You need to know how different caliber guns are used for different reasons, and also the different kinds of rifles and things like that too. So don't just go buy a gun and think you're safe now. You need to spend the time, you need to get to know the weapon and do all that. I haven't been putting as much out on my channel for a couple of reasons. One, January was like pretty much sick the whole month. Next, my day job has added about another 15 hours a week to what I was normally doing. It's taxing me pretty heavily right now. Another reason is I can feel that we're coming upon maybe another time like 2020 that could be a little crazy again. And so I'm realizing that I'm out of compliance with some of my stuff. Like, in 72-hour kits, you could buy these emergency water packets. And I think they go for 3 years, and I think I'm a year or two out. So I bought some bulk. I need to get restocked on some of my stuff. That takes time, which makes it a less time to do things on the channel, unfortunately. So I'm hoping to try to get that stuff put together as much as possible. At the same time, I don't want to just shift my channel over to a prep channel and just have my camera running as I'm doing all these things. But I do think I'll probably do one on a 72-hour kit just to pull my stuff out to show you guys what's in there. There's some interesting things that most people wouldn't put in there. You can buy them, you can make them. But the average person doesn't think through how nasty you're going to be in 3 days. So I've got a friend that basically has like a bath in a bottle product that is like a deodorant you can put all over your body, but it keeps you from sweating. And so it kills like the bacteria stuff around. And it's a pretty good product. So you don't
take a hooker bath
to deal with smelling. Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of things that are out there that you can do to prep for that. So let's do this. I got to wind this down in a few minutes, but I did want to just take it back to the original thing real quick, which is we're talking about revaluation. We're talking about Fort Knox. We're talking about all the stuff that's kind of going on with Doge. And, I showed all these videos that came up from all these channels that are going through it. So I haven't had the time to go through everything to show you guys all the facts and everything else, but Redacted has a good video on Fort Knox that's worth looking at. And the other one I liked was from Silver Gold, which is Mike Maloney's channel. He had some pretty good stuff on there too, as far as showing a lot of news articles that he kind of compiled. I think it's important to familiarize yourself with gold and silver. Dude wipes. Asher Blue totally sidetracked me. Dude wipes. for the dudes. So yeah, you can buy those things too. So, familiarize yourself with what's going on in the news, and so you're not blindsided by it. I've got a friend that I was able to help. I've got a bunch of chiropractor doctor friends. These guys, they need more gold. They're looking for investments and stuff. And I was able to help him get into a bunch of gold. And he was very hesitant in doing it. And I think we sold the gold to him around $2,400 an ounce. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 25. So today I sent him a note and said, hey, guess how much those coins are going for? Like he's up 400 to 600 bucks on it, right? Or maybe he's not. Maybe it's just the dollar has lost that much more purchasing power. However, it doesn't always do that, guys. I'm still feeling like my hamburgers are kind of relatively the same price as they were 4 or 5 months ago. And so the dollar hasn't gone down quite yet in all those things. So sometimes gold does go above inflation, and it does gain. But I just want to remind all of you guys, it's a community here. Reach out to us. We've all got email addresses. Well, I think all of us have email addresses, at least on the channels that we have. And we're here to answer questions. We're here to help you guys. We're always looking for what is the best content to put out there. I don't know what you guys are necessarily looking for. I don't get that many emails. When I was doing the videos with Nick, she was telling me she was getting this thick of like mail every week, and she was getting like 5 or 6 emails a day.
Well, she's got the pretty girl syndrome, dude.
I don't think they were asking for content, but anyway.
Maybe not our type of content.
I think I can count on one hand the amount of letters I've gotten in the 2 years, and that's okay. I'm not asking for a bunch of letters, but what I'm saying is I feel like people kind of feel like they can't reach out. They can't, they can't come and talk to us about things. Reach out. Let us know. If you want to have a video that goes into more of this stuff, we can totally do that. We can point you out to other things too. So, that's
if anybody needs help with prepping, I'm available.
That would be awesome. So let us know, Will, how to reach you too. So, shoot the other 3 of us here your email, and
don't shoot me.
Okay.
Shoot them 3.
Yeah, don't shoot.
Thanks,
Laser.
Rusty. Nice to know that I'm
pointer.
still your buddy.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, if anybody does have interest, like in that laser pointer, feel free to reach out to Tiger Stacker, and he can tell you where he picked that up. But the last thing I'm going to say,
Did that
guys,
come through?
On here on the private chat. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'll copy that real quick. So last thing I'm going to say is you cannot
up there in the private chat.
You can't eat crypto. You can't eat gold. You can't eat silver. You can't eat your stock, because you can't even get the stupid stock certificates anymore. So, kind of look at what you're doing from a standpoint of savings and preparing, and just realize that you may be a little heavy in one area and you might want to shift it into a different area. I see too many people buy too much silver all the time, and then I hear from them that they have to sell it, and they call me every once in a while, or they will email me and say, hey, can you help me move all this silver? I'm trying to move it at like $27 an ounce, and silver's trading at spot prices like $20. I'm like, there's no one that's going to buy that for silver buffaloes. You're just going to have to, if you have to sell them, you have to sell them, and you're going to take a loss on it. Also, don't overbuy stuff. It's good to have cash on hand. It's good to have that stuff. You're most likely going to use that in an SHTF way before you pull out silver and gold. But you also don't want to have a year's worth of income sitting in your house either. So, kind of think through it a little bit and do that stuff. But I want to thank you, Frostbite and Tiger and Will, for coming up and chatting with me. I'm at 6%, so pretty soon I won't have an option. It's just going to cut off on me. But I want to thank you guys for coming, and don't do that. Kenshi, don't do that. Don't go 100% leverage on anything. And also don't go 100% in any one asset class ever. It's always good to have some diversification to it. So until next time, peace out, and thank you guys for coming out.